got breaking news for you at this hour. A federal judge is ordering President Trump to pay $2 million to a series of nonprofit organizations, part of a settlement in a lawsuit that alleges the president misused his own charitable foundation. Joining me now, NBC News national security and intelligence correspondent Ken Dilanian. Ken, tell us more.
Chris, this is the result of a lawsuit filed last June by New York State Attorney General, which alleged a shocking pattern of illegality involving the Trump Foundation, including unlawful coordination with the Trump presidential campaign, repeated and willful self-dealing, and much more. In December, you'll recall, Trump agreed to essentially shutter the foundation as this lawsuit progressed. And now we have essentially a settlement where he's agreeing to pay $2 million. That's a punishment, essentially. And the judge, New York State Supreme Court Justice, in this ruling, upheld many of the AG's findings, saying that Mr. Trump's fiduciary duty breaches included allowing his campaign to orchestrate a fundraiser and allowing his campaign, instead of the charitable foundation, to direct distribution of the funds.
One of the ones I remember the most is the accusation that he bought a 6-foot-tall painting of himself with money from the charitable foundation.
Yeah, and the Washington Post has done great reporting on this. I mean, the allegations are that he used this as a personal piggy bank and a promotional tool and not very much as a charity. And now it appears that the courts in New York have essentially upheld that and punished him for doing that. And there's also a petition to the Bar Association to ban Donald Trump from ever again running a charity in New York. And in any other presidency, on any other day, this would be a huge story. Today, it's one of many stories about President Trump.
Well, I'm told that we have a statement from the foundation. Unfortunately, my phone will not refresh quickly enough. Maybe you've got it in your email, but does anybody have that? Because I want to make sure that we're fair here. And if the foundation had something to say, we'll see if. OK, let's see.
I do have it.
You have it? OK, go ahead, Ken.
I'll read some of it. The Trump Foundation is pleased, this statement reads, to donate an additional $2 million to several worthy charitable organizations. Since its inception, and I'm not going to read them all, but they're very good charitable organizations. The statement goes on, since its inception in 1987, the Trump Foundation has distributed over $19 million to hundreds of worthwhile charities with little to no expenses. The statement goes on to say that the Attorney General's frivolous request for statutory penalties, interest, and other damages was not approved by the court. The statement does not appear to contest the judge's findings that essentially Trump abused this charity in several ways by allowing his campaign to coordinate.
We're going to have to fact check these statements because, as I recall, when all of this first came out, the amount of money that they said actually went to real charitable organizations may have been less than they state. But let's take a look at that. We will fact check it. And you're actually going to come back on something else a little later on in this hour. So, Ken Dilanian, thank you for that quick work. We appreciate it.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.